Hey, Allison Verhalen here, coming at you live for today's Marketing Monday. And today I want to talk about Google. No surprise there. I'm usually talking about Google, but specifically, Google has been in the news for a few different reasons lately. So I do want to talk about some of the reasons it's been in the news and what that could mean for your SEO and or digital advertising strategy. So first and foremost, AI is hilarious. So there are two sides to this AI in search coin. First of all is the fact that ChatGPT, and I've talked about this before, the fact that people are using ChatGPT as a search engine, even though it's not designed to be a search engine. That's not what it was made for. And ChatGPT gives a lot of wrong answers. So ChatGPT recently responded by saying, I don't think it's launched it yet, but it has announced that it is working on a feature that is designed to be search, where you can use ChatGPT to ask it a question, search for information, and it will give you that information. It is now designed to do that, or there's a specific tool that is designed to do that, which is pretty cool. So Google has responded by coming up with AI search, right? If you've played around with this at all, and I did have a whole other video where I talked about this, so I'm not going to go into too much in depth here. But so that's a potential problem for Google, right? Is that ChatGPT might be considered a significant threat. So they responded by creating their own AI search, where when you search something, you get a block of text that is AI generated. So I actually prefer that to what ChatGPT is doing, because we don't see the sources in ChatGPT. You do see the sources in Google, so you can actually look through and A, get more information if you want more information, but B, you can also see where this information came from. So the problem with this is that AI, artificial intelligence, it's not that intelligent, which is something I've been saying pretty much since the beginning. It's really great at collecting information and repurposing it for you. It has zero discernment. It is completely incapable of going, oh, this is a joke. Oh, this is sarcastic. Oh, this is clearly not meant to be taken seriously. And it does not have a basic understanding of the world in the way that we do, like the fact that people cannot eat glue. That is not a thing that is edible for us. And yet AI does not have that base knowledge. So some of the if you haven't heard about it, some of the hilarious things that have been happening is that when people look for, how to do something, I can't remember what the search was, something to do with pizza toppings. And it was like, well, one way to keep your toppings and your cheese and everything on your pizza is to include glue. This was a serious recommendation that Google's AI suggested. And you do a little bit of digging, and because we can see where this information is coming from, we can see that this came from a comment on Reddit that, again, clearly meant to be a joke. A human would look at that and go, that was never meant to be taken seriously. AI has artificial intelligence. It's not. This is why I'm like, it's not really generative AI. It's just kind of collecting data and spitting it back out for you. It has no discernment. So AI, artificial intelligence, is actually quite dumb. So Google has said that they're working on it to try and weed out those things. But in order to weed out those things permanently, you really have to make AI smarter than it is. So I just don't think AI is there yet. As cool as it is to see generating a bunch of text. Now, I do also want to point out that ChatGPT also gives a lot of wrong information. And if we don't have a way, if it's not obvious that it's wrong, that's obviously wrong. There's also a lot of information that gets generated that is not so obvious that it's wrong. And that's where we can run into trouble. So always, 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 whether you're getting from Google or Bing or ChatGPT or Yahoo or wherever you get your search information from, please double check the information. At the very least, check the source to make sure that it's a legitimate source and not something like The Onion, which has also published satirical articles that then get quoted in Google's AI search as real information when it is not. So like I said, I do have a whole other thing about Google's AI search. So you can watch that video and or read that blog post if you would like. I'm not going to go into too much in depth there. I do want to move on to the antitrust lawsuit because that is the big news of the day. So what happened is that Google was accused of breaking antitrust laws, creating a monopoly. It had it paid tens of billions of dollars to vendors, to software developers, to people making browsers, to smartphone developers, so that when the browser came up, the default search engine was Google. So that gave Google a really large advantage in the market, because yes, we can all change our default browser. Have you ever changed your default browser or your default search engine? I know I've never changed my default search engine. My browsers, I use Google Chrome, so obviously Google is the default search engine there. I also use Safari on my iPhone. Google is the default there. I have a client where I use their computer, and I haven't installed Google or anything on there. So I use Bing or Microsoft Edge, which is their browser, which comes with Bing. So if I have to look something up, I use Bing because I'm not going to bother to change the default browser or the default search engine, even though it's super quick and easy, right? It's just not what we do as humans. We are lazy. We will take the path of least resistance. If we see a search bar pop up and we know we can put it in and get what the information we want, it doesn't really matter to us which search engine is doing that. So Google has paid tens of billions of dollars to vendors and browser manufacturers to be the default, so that they can get all that juicy data. So the Department of Justice sued them like years ago. Like 2 or 3 years ago, I first wrote about this. And the judge, it finally reached a decision, and the judge said, yes, this is anti-competitive behavior. We don't know yet what the result of that is going to be. We don't know if Google is going to be forced to cancel some of those contracts. Google, of course, said, no, they entered into these contracts of their own free will. This is not anti-competitive. Which sounds great until you go, okay, then why did you pay them tens of billions of dollars? Like, yeah, there's doing something of your own free will, and then there's, sweetening the pot a lot. That's not even sweetening it a little bit. That's a big incentive to go with Google, but it's because Google is wants to get all of this data, which is the other reason that we don't really bother to switch to another search engine. Because, right, it's free, it's convenient, it's easy. There is not a sufficient incentive for us as the consumer to use another browser, which then means Google can harvest all our data, which brings me into the new one, Google's third-party cookies. So back in 2020, gosh, 4 years ago already. So it became if you're not already familiar with what third-party cookies are, every time you visit a website, any website, it uses first-party cookies to track your activity there. First-party cookies are beneficial for both the user and the website owner, right? They do things like make sure, it saves your language preferences on the website. For example, if you put things in the shopping cart and then leave without doing anything or without completing the purchase and then come back days later or later that day or whatever, it saves that information. You've still got that in your cart because of the first-party cookie. Makes for a seamless interaction with the website. That way you don't have to go back and look for those things again. You don't have to try and remember everything that was in the cart. It's already there for you. Again, that benefits the website owner. It also benefits the consumer. That is what cookies were designed to do. Third-party cookies are much more nefarious in that they follow you around the internet. So you go on a website and you get one website can get you as much as 200 or more cookies that are now following you everywhere to see what other websites you're visiting. And they can collect an insane amount of information on you, health information, financial information, location data. This obviously is for advertising. So we can get that information and really get specific on targeting people for advertising purposes. Super harmless for most of us, right? But then you've got people like loan sharks that are targeting people who are probably in need of a loan and probably not very well equipped to pay back that loan in a timely fashion. And now they are suddenly buried in debt because of that information that was sold to them. So that is something to be concerned about. Insurance providers, stalkers have even been given sold information on the people they are stalking because Google doesn't care about those things. That's all about the money for Google. So having just watched Baby Reindeer, that is a whole other level of scary. And that has literally happened where a stalker has used that, bought information from Google and used it to find their stalker and kill her. So that's fun. So I find this funny because I read a book on Google as how it was getting started as a company and what their motto allegedly was, and it was to not be evil. And so they would make decisions based on, is this evil or is this not? I don't know if they're still pretending that that's their motto or if they just put it up on a wall somewhere and don't actually pay any attention to it, or if they've gotten rid of it entirely, because keeping these third-party cookies that are obviously hurting consumers in a very real way is clearly just for their financial benefit. So back in 2020, we have other browsers like Safari and Firefox. We're all like, yeah, no, we're going to get rid of these third-party cookies because it is so harmful to our users. And Google was like, yeah, we'll get rid of them later, like 2021. And then it got pushed back to 2022. And then it got pushed back to 2023. And it was easy to see where they were going with this, right? So this year they finally were like, yeah, no, we're just not getting rid of them. We're just going to keep third-party cookies. So if you are a digital advertiser, that's actually good news for you because you can continue gathering a whole bunch of information on your target audience and get really specific about the kinds of people that you're targeting and what the problems are that they're dealing with. So good news for you. Take advantage of that. As a consumer, it's not great news. You can use things like there's a Chrome extension called Privacy Badger that you can install that blocks a lot of those cookies. So I recommend installing that. I also recommend clearing your search history and your browsing history at least once a week, if not more often. So and including cookies. When you clear that history, that also clears your cookies. So make sure that little clear delete cookies box is checked. So that is it. That is everything that Google is up to. And I mean, I'm sure it's not everything Google is up to these days. But that is some of the ways that Google has been in the news. I also want to point out that I was going back to, ChatGPT taking its lunch. While I was in the process of writing this blog post, I was looking something up on my phone using browser, using Google, which then prompts me to use the Google search app, which I had never even heard of and certainly had never been prompted to use it. So I don't know if this is a new search app or if it's just been around for a while and Google is now like, well, if we don't have the browser advantage anymore, maybe we should prompt people who are already using it on the browser to use our app. If anything, I think it's kind of funny that it's taken this long for Google to create an app just because they have an app for, there's an app for everything now, right? But also because they have an app for everything else. They have an app for Gmail and their calendar and Google Home and all of the other things. So if anything, it's kind of surprising that it's taken this long for them to either create a search app or to promote it to the extent that they are now currently promoting it. But again, that's probably because of what's going on in the courts. Google, by the way, has said they are going to appeal that decision, which is to be expected. So we will see what the results of that are. And the judge has not yet made a decision as to what the remedy is going to be. It has just decided, yes, this is antitrust behavior, monopolistic behavior. We don't like this. We're going to do something about this. So the judge will make a decision, I believe, September 6th. Of this year, 2024. But again, that will go to appeal, which will probably put a hold on everything. So it's going to be probably years in the future before we see any more information regarding this antitrust lawsuit. But I do find it interesting that Google is apparently already shifting some of the things it's doing and the way it's doing certain things to try to account for things like this. So that's it. That is everything that I have for you today. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can get more information about this kind of thing over at my website, AV as in my initials, Allison Verhalen. That is avwritingservices.com. You can reach me directly by shooting me an email at info@avwritingservices.com. That's it. Have a great week and happy blogging, everyone.